Some viewers may find the following video disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised.
Welcome everyone. Today we're talking about An Ice Cold Mother Part 8. Today we're talking about the life of Shonda Vander Ark. In our last video we had talked about how by June of 2022, Paul Ferguson would actually text his mother, Shonda, and would tell her that he was beginning to become worried for his brother Timothy, and would say that he was concerned about his health, that he had been losing a lot of weight and was extremely weak to the point that he could not perform a lot of the exercises they were making him do on a daily basis. And he would even go as far to ask if he could call an ambulance for his brother. But Shonda would tell Paul, under no circumstances would you be able to call the ambulance and call for help for his brother. So he would also ask if he could fix his brother something to eat. And again, Shonda would refuse this and say, no, you're not to feed him. And it's not sure how, as I said before, but he would actually sneak past all the security cameras that they had at the house, and he would actually make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. And he would also scramble some eggs with some cheese and feed it to his brother Timothy. And Timothy would be completely ecstatic over this, and it said that he would eat every last crumb. And you have to keep in mind that he was being starved on a daily basis. This was probably the first decent meal he had in months since he had moved in with his mother Shonda, and had probably been the first thing he had in weeks that was not marinated with the hot sauce Elijah's Extreme Regret. And I really wish this is the point in time of the story where Paul turns everything around and he actually tries to do something right for his brother. But unfortunately, this would be the only decent, humane thing that Paul Ferguson would do. Because after this, the next following day, he would go back to abusing Timothy and would even send Shonda a text message, and I quote, "I'm ready to kill Timothy," and would tell Shonda that he was faking being sicker than he actually was. But considering the amount of abuse and just how much he was being starved and everything that we have discussed, he really was holding on by a thread. By July 5th, 2022, Paul would message Shonda again, and this time he would say that he thinks that there was something wrong with Timothy, and would say that he was in the closet and he was going to wake him up at 2 p.m. as he had normally done, but he wasn't responding to anything. He would try to yell for him, he would shake him, he would smack him, anything he could to try to wake Timothy up, but Timothy just wasn't responding. And he would ask Shonda if he could, again, call an ambulance, and Shonda would say no. But Shonda would have a better idea, and she would suggest to Paul that he take and drag his brother upstairs to the bathroom and draw him an ice bath and put him inside of it. Paul would do exactly as Shonda had asked. He would grab his brother and drag him into the bathroom, and he would start drawing an ice bath as he had done before, and he would place his brother inside the bath. And he would text Shonda again and would say he's not responding to the ice bath, he's just not waking up. And Shonda would then tell Paul to go down to the kitchen and cook one pizza roll in the oven. And when it was done cooking, to take it up to the ice bath and just wave it in front of Timothy's face. And if he woke up and tried to grab for the pizza roll, take it back from him. And Paul would do exactly as Shonda had asked. He would take the pizza roll and he would cook it, he would bring it upstairs, and he would wave it in front of Timothy's face. And the aroma from the pizza roll would actually wake Timothy up, and he was so starved and so hungry that he would actually begin reaching for this pizza roll, and Paul would take it back. And it said that Shonda would be so livid from this that she would tell Paul to leave Timothy in the ice bath and not to take him out until she got home, which was at least 4 hours away. And not only would Shonda come home, she would still leave Timothy in this ice bath. And it said that she not only would not take him out as soon as she got home, but she would even take Paul to work and take him home, and would not attempt to take Timothy out of this ice bath until 11 p.m., which would mean that Timothy laid in this freezing water for 9 hours. It was shown on the CCTV footage later that around 11 p.m. Shonda would go into the bedroom and she would grab Timothy by the arm and she would begin dragging him across the floor to the closet. And then you can hear on the camera Shonda screaming at Timothy and calling him pathetic, and would be screaming at him that he was faking everything, and she would just drag him into the closet and lay him there. And she would eventually end before closing the door and telling Timothy, "You owe me such a big apology for how you've been acting." Timothy would not respond to this, as his health had really taken a turn for the worse, and he was seen in this closet, and you could actually hear his breathing getting raspier and raspier and more shallower and shallow. And it said that at this point Shonda would scream at Timothy again and say, "Stop breathing like that. You're not that bad." And would have even go as far to opening the closet door and would actually put her hand over his mouth to where he couldn't breathe. And from Timothy's reaction, she would say, "See, you're not that bad. Stop breathing like that." And would eventually close the door for good this time. And it seemed that Timothy's breathing would get slower and slower, slowly rising and slowly decreasing. And eventually, Timothy would just stop breathing. And on July 6, 2022, Timothy Ferguson's chest would actually set for the last time. 15-year-old Timothy Ferguson would pass away alone in a closet on a tarp after living with his mother for 6 months. 6 months was the complete time frame it took for them to slowly torture this child to death. And this is where it's the most heartbreaking and gut-wrenching thing about the entire story is Timothy's only desire in the world, his entire life of his short 15-year life, was to be loved. His only desire was to be loved. And he never got it. Not from his father, not from his mother, not from his siblings. He grew up his entire life not knowing what love was. And the even more gut-wrenching thing about this is he probably died laying in this closet thinking that this was his fault, that his mother was correcting him for something he had done wrong. He probably had no idea that he was the only one that was doing nothing wrong. It probably never processed or occurred to him that he was being killed by 2 monsters. By July 6, 2022, Paul would actually go to check on his brother at 2 p.m. as he had always done. And I also want to keep in mind the entire time that Timothy has been dead for all night and all morning, and no one checked on him. And it's not until this point that Paul Ferguson realizes that his brother is in bad shape. And he would actually call Shonda and would inform her that Timothy wasn't breathing. And he couldn't get Timothy to wake up as he could the night before. And it's at this point that Shonda would actually make her way home